Well, what can really be said about Power Rangers Time Force at this point? It's been widely regarded by many, pretty much the entire fan base, as one of the best seasons of the entire franchise. You can put me up in that category, but a lot like Linkara, there are a few things about it that keep me from being able to call it like a top 5 season, but it's definitely a top 10 season, absolutely. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Animation Station, and welcome back to Morphin May, and today we are taking a look at the highly praised and very well regarded Power Rangers Time Force. I'll start with the analytics, and then I'm just going to spend the rest of the review pretty much glowing about everything, and nitpicking a few tiny little things. So, without further ado, I got my computer pulled up here, so let's take a look, shall we? Let's start off with our cast of main Rangers. First up, we have Trip, the Green Ranger, played by Kevin Kleinberg. Then we have Katie, the Yellow Ranger, played by Deborah Estelle Phillips. Then you have Lucas, the Blue Ranger, played by Michael Copon. The best Pink Ranger in the whole franchise, and I will fight you on this till the end of time. Ha, puns, haha. Jen, played by Eric Cahill. Jen is such an awesome Pink Ranger. Arguably the best ever. And not to mention, I think it's one of the only times in the entire series where the Pink Ranger is the second in command instead of the Blue. Really nice change up. And then, of course, that's also paired with one of the best Red Rangers of all time in Wes Collins, played by Jason Font. He is a great Red Ranger. At first, he doesn't quite understand everything that's going on, but the more time he spends with the team, the more he pretty much becomes a part of the team. And his connection that he builds with Jen that ends up becoming romantic later on is really well done, really well paced, and just one of the best relationships in Power Rangers. I think we can all agree on that. But the greatness doesn't stop there, because we also have a Quantum Ranger. That's the 6th Ranger of the season, and a bit of a weird one, because it's also kind of a Red Ranger, which kind of gives him a bit of a loophole to being Forever Red in the very next season. But it's still cool. Quantum Ranger is cool. He's played by Daniel Southworth. Then for the crossover characters of the season, you have the Lightspeed Rangers. Dana, Kelsey, Joel, Chad, Carter, and Ryan. Yeah, they all come back. And trust me, the crossover episode itself is really good. I'll get more into that later. Moving on to our supporting cast, we have Circuit, the robot owl, voiced by Brienne Siddall. He's fine. He's no alpha, but at the same time, he's not, actively annoying. I really like Circuit. He's kind of like the really younger brother of the Rangers, because he considers them like family. And apologies if it's a she and not a he. It's confusing. Then you have Captain Logan, voiced by Roy Werner. And then you have Mr. Collins, voiced by the late, great Edward Lawrence Albert. Yeah, unfortunately, let's talk about another Ranger actor who sadly passed on to the great beyond. He did a great job as Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins spends most of the time being a greedy corporate turd, but later on in the series, he gets a lot better. And even during that time, Mr. Albert puts in a great performance, so may he forever rest in peace and may the power protect him. Thankfully, though, that's the only passed away actor we have to talk about this time. So it's not going to be as sad as the one segment from last night with Lightspeed. Moving on, we have Dr. Michael Zaskin, played by Ken Merkix. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. And then you have Noticon, played by Barbara Goodson. Yeah, Barbara Goodson's back again. Then for the villains, unfortunately, I don't really remember any of the actors that play these, so I'm just going to list them off this time. No offense to the actors who did play them. I just don't remember. But the one I do remember, of course, is the main villain of the season, Ranzik, played by Vernon Wells. Yeah, Vernon Wells. the awesome Mohawk guy from Mad Max 2. And this is still his most defining role. Heck, there's even an episode in this season where Rancid gets to be in Mad Max gear as a homage to that character in Road Warrior. That is awesome. Then you have his daughter Nadira, then you have Frax, Gluto, and the Cyclobots. The Cyclobots are fine. They're the same kind of foot soldiers we've come to expect at this point. Moving on from there, we have the weapons. Universal weapons are the Chrono Blaster and the Chrono Sabers, which can also be combined into like a miniature staff kind of thing. It's a bit confusing, but it'll make more sense when you watch the show. And then exclusive to the Red Ranger, and surprisingly the Green Ranger of all of them, is the Electro Booster. Yeah, that's a strange one. And then for the individual weapons, you just have V1 through V5. They don't have unique names, which kind of sucks, but they're still cool. Then you have the Vortex Blaster when they're all combined, because, that's part of the Power Ranger status quo. You gotta have all the main Ranger weapons combined into one singular weapon to destroy the enemy. Sorry, I have a cough drop in my mouth. Then, of course, from there, you have the Quantum Ranger's weapon, the Quantum Defender, which is it's a pistol. Pretty cool pistol, but a pistol nonetheless. Then for the Battleizer in the season, you get two. You have the Quantum Mega Battle Armor for the Quantum Ranger. Yeah, Quantum Ranger gets a lot of love in this season. And you also have the Red Battle Warrior for Wes. Moving on to the vehicles, you have the Time Ship and the Time Jet. Neither of them are in the actual Megazord combinations, they're just transportation vehicles. And then you have the Vector Cycles, because you gotta have motorcycles in the season, apparently. And then you have the Stratus Cycle for the Red Ranger, and again, specific to the Quantum Ranger, the TF Eagle. Yeah, like I said, he gets a lot of love in this season. Then for the Zords, you have Time Flyer 1 through 5 for the main team, and then the Quantum Ranger gets an awesome Zord. The Quantosaurus Rex, or Q-Rex as it's come to be known by later. This Zord is an awesome design, and it's incredibly effective in battle. Like, seriously, Q-Rex is an awesome Zord. And he himself has a Megazord form all by its own, which is really unique. Then for the Megazords, you have, of course, the Time Force Megazord, the Shadow Force Megazord, the Time Shadow Megazord when Time Force and Shadow Force are combined together, and the Transwarp Megazord, which I believe is what happens when you combine that with the Q-Rex. Now for the essential episodes of the season, and this is a very short list, but trust me when I say this whole season is worth watching. So, for the essential episodes of the season, we have Force from the Future, Part 1 and 2. That's the pilot episode where we have what was initially going to be the second on-screen Ranger death, but ended up turning into a fake-out later on. So, yeah, there's that. And Jen is established as the leader of the 3 other Time Force Rangers, teaching Wes actually how to be a Ranger, even though it starts out rocky, because after he unlocks the Quantum Morphers and they fight off Ranzik's forces for the time being, Jen takes the Morpher back and they walk away. So yeah, really interesting. Then you have Ranzik Libs, which is the intro of the Clock Tower, which is the base of the Rangers in this season. Yeah, I know, that's the thing I haven't really been talking about much, is the bases of the Rangers, and I apologize about that. But some of them are pretty simplistic. I only really note the very notable ones, like, for example, a clock tower. That's really unique. Or, of course, the power chamber being the first. And then Lightspeed Rescue has the Aqua Base, and etc., etc., etc. Then moving on from there, we have Worlds Apart, which is the intro of Eric, who becomes the Quantum Ranger. Then we have Quantum Quest, Clash for Control Part 1 and 2. This is the Quantum Ranger arc, where at first Quantum Ranger doesn't want to work with the Time Force Rangers and just wants to go out and do his own thing, which leads to Eric and Wes having an awesome one-on-one fight. Then you have the filler episode, Trip Takes a Stand, which is notable because it's the Prejudice episode. This is the episode where Power Rangers tries to tackle prejudice, which sadly is still very relevant today. And a lot like the anorexia episode, that's from way back, I believe, in Turbo, it's treated with respect, and it doesn't feel like it's being made to be exploited, which is something that's very much appreciated with shows that try to talk about it, but instead end up treating it more like a joke. Family Guy. But here it's treated with respect, and it's a really good episode. Not to mention, it's a pivotal part in Eric's character development. So, it's a filler episode, but it's a very interesting and fascinating filler episode. Speaking of fun filler episodes, Movie Madness Part 1 and 2. This is just a fun one where the Rangers get thrown into different movie genres, and like I said, Ranzik dresses in his Mad Max gear. Not really much more to say, it's just a fun 2-part filler episode. And a nice homage to Vernon Wells' filmography, while still being kid-friendly. Moving on from there, you have Frax's Fury, which is when Frax breaks away from Ranzik, and we realize that Frax is actually the doctor that is supposedly killed by Ranzik after he tries to help Ranzik when this mutant disease starts, pretty much killing him. And Ranzik rewards him by trying to kill him back. So yeah, there's that. Then you have the Dawn of Destiny. This is when Alex returns to the series. Yeah, that was Jen's original fiance that was supposedly killed at the very start of Time Force, but it turned out that was a fake out, and a pretty bad one at that. And then Fight Against Fate, where Alex resumes the Red Ranger duties and Wes ends up leaving because his dad gets sent to the hospital. And then in Destiny Defeated, the Rangers turn against Alex and don't like his ideology or his hard-nosed tactics anymore. In turn, Wes returns and defines his own destiny from what the timeline said he's supposed to do. Yeah, really interesting 2-part episode. Then you have Time for Lightspeed. This is the crossover episode, and it's a really good one at that. Like, not only seeing the two teams together, but just the way that they organize it and the way it's all put together is great. And the fights are great. It's just a great crossover episode. One of the best. Then you have Calm Before the Storm. This is the penultimate episode and the final episode before the finale. And then the finale is End of Time Part 1 through 3. Where, in a fascinating twist, the villain isn't, destroyed or anything like that. Instead, he gives himself up after he almost hurts his own daughter. And in a fun filler episode I forgot to mention on here, there's one where Nadira falls in love with the Blue Ranger, and just to make her happy, Ranzik specifically tells his monsters not to attack the Blue Ranger, and even helps Blue Ranger on his date. It's a cute, funny episode. I can't remember the title of it right off my head, but it's a really good episode. That one's not really essential, but it's a fun one. Now my thoughts on Time Force overall. I mean, do I really need to explain this one? This is an awesome season of Power Rangers. The suit designs are great. The acting is some of the best in the whole series. Everyone brought their A game here. Even the side characters like Mr. Collins. And the whole concept of Power Rangers being time police are really cool. Wes is a great Red Ranger. Jen is the best Pink Ranger, and I will fight you on this. Reason why she's in my intro to begin with. And the finale's really good. The writing's really good. It's just an awesome season of Power Rangers. Plain and simple. Where it does stumble a bit is in its actual time-related stuff. There's some continuity and consistency, and it does create a couple plot holes, which I complained a lot about when I reviewed Arceus Jewel of Life, but Here it's not nearly as obnoxious. It's more just a little thing that kind of bugs me a little bit when you think about it too much. I also feel like Frax, as cool of a design and as cool of a concept he wasn't really given the best execution. Like, he definitely plays a pivotal role in helping Nadira realize that humans aren't so bad after all, and she apologizes to him, even using his human name. But outside of that, Frax doesn't really do a whole lot, which is a shame because I feel like they could have done a lot more with this character. Ranzek's an awesome villain, and the way that they actually end off Time Force is satisfying in the way that instead of just killing him, like Jen would have done if he was captured way back in the first half of the season, instead he gives himself up and allows himself to be arrested. Because he realizes the error of his ways and how his hatred ended up almost costing the one thing he truly loved, which is his daughter. Like, it's a sweet, it's an emotional, and it's a very good season of Power Rangers, and it has a lot of dark moments too. Like, there's another episode I forgot to list on here where some of the Rangers almost die from this poison from one of Ranzek's monsters. Like, it's intense. So yeah, that's pretty much all I can really say about Time Force. It is an awesome season of Power Rangers, and it still holds up as one of the best. However, like I said, a few things with the time consistency do bug me a bit, and Alex just being a first pilot episode death fake out is a bit annoying, especially when he turns out to be such a word I'm not going to say because this is a kid-friendly channel. But this is still an awesome season of Power Rangers. It still holds up. It's still a lot of fun. And even though I listed only the essential episodes, I think the whole season's worth watching. There's not a single bad episode in this season. It's not like Lightspeed Rescue where you had that one awful episode where Dana turned into a spoiled snob. Here, all the characters get mostly pretty good development. There's a lot of funny jokes. There's really cool monster designs. Like, I could go on and on. This is just an awesome season of Power Rangers, plain and simple. And it's one of those that you absolutely need to watch if you want to get into Power Rangers. Yes, even with that silver mouth mold helmet thing still being present. Like, I'm sorry, that thing just bugs me. Final verdict for Power Rangers Time Force is a 9 out of 10. It is still one of the best of the series, and it still holds up even over 20 years later. 20 years, man, I feel old. But yeah. Unfortunately, next time we're going to take a huge step backwards because next we got to talk about the painful mediocrity that is Power Rangers Wild Force. And I've got some thoughts about it. See you in the next review.